Fellas, we've had 14 pay-per-views this year, and I feel like it's the time where we have to do a video where we essentially just say one thing, or not just one thing, but the best part about every pay-per-view in 2023. I might do a counter video to this, doing the worst thing about every pay-per-view, but we've had some good pay-per-views, we've also had some shit pay-per-views, so I'll go over every one of them and say what my favourite part of each one was. Let me know your thoughts down below, what your favourite of each pay-per-view was. But first pay-per-view of the year, we had UFC 283. My favourite part was the fact that we got to see Moreno and Figueiredo finally settle their rivalry. Yeah, I was sick of it. I was sick of it happening 4 times. I feel like it was just repetitive, and I've got a weird feeling that we're going to see the same thing between Moreno and Pantoja, but I'm glad that it was a good fight. We finally got over it, and now we get to see Figgy do his bantamweight debut, and we get to see Moreno stick at flyweight, meaning we never have to see this fight ever again. 4 times is just too much for me. So yeah, I'm glad that we got to see this fight for the last time, and that's my favourite part of 283. Next pay-per-view, and by the way, I am going to be skipping over them quite quickly because there's a lot of pay-per-views we have to get, by. UFC 284. Favourite part about this was the fight of the year contender, Volk versus Islam. Yeah, this was one of the best fights this year, not only because of the fight itself, but how much high stakes were in this fight. It was the best versus the best. Volkanovski dominating at the time. Islam had just destroyed Charles Oliveira. It was such high stakes, and I was glad that we got to see this fight. Now, it was so close as well. It wasn't like a one-sided beating. It was such a close fight. It could have gone either way. I do personally believe Islam won the fight, which he did. So yeah, it was a good fight, good scrap, and I feel like that the anticipation of the fight and the fight itself just made it what it is. So I'm going to say that Volk versus Islam, the actual fight itself, was my favourite part of 284. Next pay-per-view, UFC 285. Favourite part was that we got to see the return of Jon Jones. Now, it wasn't just the fact that Jon Jones, one of the greatest of all time, returning after 3 years, he's back. It's also the fact that he dominated Cyril Gane in the fashion he did. It wasn't like it was a kind of a 5-round, kind of a slugfest fight where it was a bit controversial of who won. It was Jon Jones going out there and submitting Cyril Gane super quickly. And I feel like because of that, I'm going to have to rate this pay-per-view highly. And I'm glad that Jon Jones returned in the way he did. Kind of exposed Cyril Gane's grappling quite a lot as well, so the anticipation, it lived up to, high anticipation, lived up to the hype. Jones also reached 2 divisional champ status, so I'm going to say the best part of 285 was the return of Jones, which that was what was building the pay-per-view, so it's no surprise. 286, my favourite part was that Leon was able to beat Kamaru Usman by decision, showing that the head kick wasn't a fluke. Yeah, there was a lot of people coming into this fight saying that Usman's going to beat Leon because if Leon can't land the head kick, what's Leon going to do? And I'm glad that Leon was able to go out there and beat Usman. I know he didn't win every round, but he was able to beat Usman by decision. Now, that sounds weird saying I'm glad he won by decision, but it shows that he doesn't have to rely on a knockout to win. In the first fight, in the second fight, he did have to rely on the head kick, but it showed that he can beat a guy like Usman without having to land that one shot. He can beat him for 5 rounds. Like I said, I know he didn't win every round, but he can beat him by decision, and it showed that Leon's a well-rounded fighter. This is one of his best displays of how well-rounded he was, able to grapple with Usman, able to strike with him, and I'm just glad that we got to see Leon Edwards of a more well-rounded fighter than we've seen him before. So that's my favourite part about 286. 287. We got to see Raul Rosas Jr. humbled. Yeah, there's a lot that went on in this pay-per-view. We had obviously the Adesanya knockout. We had the Masvidal retirement. We had a couple of good fights. But my personal favourite is the fact that we got to see Raul Rosas Jr. finally get humbled. Now, this guy was talking so much. His entire hype was all from the fact that he's young. That's literally his entire career hype. The fact that he's a young fighter, youngest fighter in the UFC. And that's literally what he's been able to build his career off. So I'm glad that he was able to get humbled so early. And I don't hate this guy. I feel like the hate that he gets is kind of uncalled for because, like I said, he is pretty young. But at the same time, he did deserve to lose. The guy was, talking about how he's going to be a 2-divisional champ, saying that he deserves Sterling already when he'd only had 2 fights so far. Yeah, jiu-jitsu master as well, who was hyping himself up to be this insane jiu-jitsu master, then gets out grappled for 3 rounds by a guy who was supposed to crush. They gave him Christian Rodriguez to absolutely, demolish so he could display his skill, but that just wasn't the case. Went out there, got humbled, and that's my favourite part of the pay-per-view. We finally got to see him get humbled. Next pay-per-view, UFC 288. Now, this was quite a poor pay-per-view. Probably, I'm going to say it's my least favourite one this year. But my favourite part about it is that we finally got to see Sterling win a non-controversial decision, in the title fight. I've noticed that pretty much every title fight that Sterling has won besides the Cejudo fight, which was on this pay-per-view, every single one of them has been controversial. The first Yan fight, it was the disqualification knee where he did the Oscar of the performance, and it was just quite disappointing. The second Yan fight, it was a controversial decision. There was a lot of people saying that Yan should have won the fight. The Dillashaw fight, Dillashaw just come back and he got injured pretty much immediately into the fight. And I feel like this was the first fight where he got a fair win. There wasn't this, injury that Cejudo got. It wasn't like it was a disqualification, not even a controversial decision. It was a somewhat close fight, but Sterling definitely won it. It was not robbery or anything like that. So I'd say the best part about this pay-per-view, which was quite poor, is the fact that Sterling finally managed to pick up a win that wasn't controversial. Next pay-per-view, 289, again, not the greatest pay-per-view, but the best part about this, without a doubt, was that the fact that Charles Oliveira was able to show that he's still fresh and dangerous. After he got beaten by Islam, I saw so many people say that Dariush is going to run through Oliveira. He's a nightmare matchup. I even had people saying that Dariush is going to beat Islam Makhachev. Apparently, he just is this really insane, a technical guy, stylistic nightmare. And Oliveira goes out there and beats him in the first round. I expected Oliveira to win this fight, but I didn't expect him to do it in the fashion that he did. This was a dominant performance from Charles Oliveira, and let's be honest, this was the real main event. No one wanted to see Aldana versus Nunes. Everyone watching this pay-per-view watched it to see Oliveira and Dariush, and it didn't disappoint. Oliveira goes out there showing that he's still a title contender, once again crushing another contender in Dariush, and it was just a good display good display by Oliveira, showing that he still got it, because, like I said, a lot of people saying Olives is washed after one loss to Islam, and then he goes out there, does what he normally does, gets a finish in the first round, and showing that he's still dangerous. And that's my favourite part of the pay-per-view. The Charles Oliveira legacy lives on. UFC 290, this was a stacked pay-per-view, but my favourite part was probably the Robbie Lawler retirement. You couldn't have asked for a better retirement. You go out there in your last fight with a crowd that supports you, knock out your opponent in the first round, then you have everyone supporting you, and just as you get interviewed in the octagon, you get to see like a pre-made video just for your retirement to highlight and, look back at your career. I think this is the best retirement ever. Like I said, you couldn't have asked for a better retirement, and Robbie Lawler deserved it. He's such a legend, one of the best, and it was just a great way to end his career. So for that reason, I'm going to say that Robbie Lawler's retirement, in my opinion, was the best part of UFC 290. There's a couple other moments as well, obviously Dricus beating Whittaker, Volkanovski, Rodriguez, but I mean, if you compare this retirement to the Glover Teixeira retirement at UFC 283, it just shows you how different, how good Robbie Lawler's was. So I'm going to say Robbie Lawler's retirement for 290. 291, Derek Lewis knocking out De Lima and then stripping. That's probably my favourite part of the pay-per-view. There were a couple issues last minute. There was a couple pullouts, and we had a good knockout in the main event, but my personal favourite had to be the Derek Lewis knockout. He went for the Masvidal flying knee. It would have been better if he knocked him out clean rather than having to follow it with, follow-up shots. Like, if he was actually able to get that flying knee, that would have been insane. But, because Masvidal was in the crowd as well, because it was going to hand the winner the BMF belt of the main event. But either way, yeah, Derek Lewis knocking out De Lima and then stripping, probably the best part. I mean, Joe Rogan dying on commentary made it better as well. It was definitely one of the best moments of 291. We got to see Derek Lewis get a win as well, because he was kind of struggling with a lot of contenders, getting mauled by Spivak, ran through by Pavlovich, and then he finally picks up a win in a dominant fashion early on. And I'm glad it was on the main card as well, because I'm pretty sure it was originally scheduled to be on the prelims as a prelim headliner, and then obviously Wonderboy pulled out and they moved this one to the main card. So I'm glad it was on the main card, because it definitely performed. Anyway, next pay-per-view, 292. It's got to be the O'Malley win. It has to be the O'Malley win. Like I said, it could have been the Zhang Weili, how she absolutely dominated Lemos, but O'Malley winning at UFC 292 in the fashion that he did, for me, has to be the best moment. I mean, listen, no disrespect to Aljamain Sterling. I quite like him as a person, but as a fighter, I think we can all agree that O'Malley is 10 times more exciting than Sterling as a fighter. So for the first thing, I'm glad that we got to see O'Malley become a champion, because I'd much rather be interested in watching O'Malley's title fights rather than Sterling's. And on top of that, it was the way that he did it as well, knocking him out, timing it perfectly, like it was some McGregor Aldo, kind of like a reminiscent of McGregor Aldo. It was extremely unexpected. He was an underdog, and it showed that O'Malley's legit as well. There was a lot of people saying that O'Malley's was not good enough for the belt. He barely beat Yan. He'd had an easy title run, which I guess you can say is true, but the fact that he was able to go out there and knock out Sterling in the way he did, you've got to give him respect. And for that reason, it's probably my favourite moment, because I don't even mind O'Malley as champion, because we're going to have some exciting title fights now, because he's one of the most exciting fighters in the UFC, in my opinion. 293, I think we can all agree, Strickland taking the belt from Izzy was the best moment of this pay-per-view. This might have been Izzy's worst fight week ever, to have to deal with the whole dog situation all week, getting bullied by Manel Cap, and then to end it off, he loses his belt to a guy that he was supposed to absolutely run through in Sean Strickland. And again, the good thing about this fight and the way that Strickland beat him was the fact that he did it over 5 rounds. It wasn't like he was losing the entire fight and then out of nowhere got a knockout. It was the fact that he put a beating, an all-American beating on Israel Adesanya for 5 rounds. It was deemed impossible. It was the most unexpected outcome of 2023, in my opinion, and the fact that Strickland, out of everyone, and this fight wasn't even supposed to happen in the first place. It was supposed to be Dricus versus Adesanya, but the fact that Strickland was able to take the belt from Adesanya in the fashion that he did it as well, 100% the best moment of 293, arguably one of the best moments of the year as well. So I'm going to say that for 293. 294, I'm going to say Islam proving that he's dangerous on the feet. This was a weird pay-per-view. We had Usman Chimaev last minute, but I'm going to say the best part, and listen, I'm not a Volkanovski hater or anything. In fact, I love watching Volkanovski fight when he's dominating his opponents, but I'm going to be honest, it was quite good watching Makhachev knock him out. And that, like I said, this isn't against Volkanovski, but this is just because it showed that Islam is so dangerous. There's not one fighter in the world right now, and I know people are going to comment saying, this contender or this contender, but there's not one fighter in the world right now that I can say beats Islam Makhachev, at least in the lightweight division. There's not one fighter I can see that beats him. This guy has proved, especially in this fight, that he's so well-rounded. He's dangerous on the feet, amazing striker. I mean, he was able to knock out Volkanovski, who's one of the best strikers in the UFC, and then obviously we all know how dangerous he is on the ground as well. So I'm going to say Islam proving that he's dangerous on the feet and not just one of these guys who relies on grappling you to win. I'm going to say that, and ending Volkanovski's rivalry as well, so we can move on with things as well. Yeah, I'm going to say 294. Islam proving that he's dangerous on the feet was the best part. 295. Now I was going to go with the Aspinall Pavlovich thing, but I'm going to have to give it to Pereira, just because I mean it was a big achievement for Pereira, becoming a 2-division champion, from also getting knocked out right by Adesanya at the beginning of the year, and then in that same year winning a belt in a different division. And to be honest, it's just showing that he's a dedicated hater by Izzy by taking the belt that Izzy couldn't. Izzy tried beating Jan Blachowicz, Pereira does it. Izzy tries winning the light heavyweight belt, Pereira does it. Most dedicated hater of all time. And also the fashion that he did it as well. You can talk about the stoppage being controversial, but the fact that he was able to knock out a guy as crafty as Yuri Prohaska to win the belt, listen, you got to give it to him. It's a big achievement, and for that reason, Pereira winning the belt and becoming once again a champion, I'm gonna have to say that that's the best moment of 295. And finally, 296, I'm going to say Strickland and Dricus brawling in the crowd. I don't know what Dana White was thinking by seating them next to each other, but all I'm going to say is that was definitely the best moment. I mean, the card was quite slow paced, so when we got an actual high action fight, high paced fight in the crowd between Dricus and Strickland, it was hilarious, man. This might have been the most unexpected but funny rivalry of 2023. When they entered the press conference, the seasonal press conference, I thought this fight's going to be quite a boring build-up. They're just going to be respecting each other. And then to end it off, a few days later, trying to beat the shit out of each other in the crowd, I thought it was a great promotion for their fight. And that's probably one of the best takeaways we had from UFC 293, that little brawl that they had. But that, in my opinion, is the best part about every pay-per-view in 2023. Let me know what your favourite part about some of the pay-per-views were. I'll do a counter video to this saying the worst part about every pay-per-view. But yeah, anyway, thank you for watching.